I said to Mr. Abbott, she's going to be the engineer. Sure, are you mine?
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 shocking facts we learned from Lucy and Desi.
Underneath all of this painful stuff and disappointment, at the core, it's all about unconditional love.
For this list, we'll be looking at revelations you might not have known before watching this Amazon documentary about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. What was your biggest takeaway from Lucy and Desi? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Target Practice Tragedy. Ball's kindly grandfather sparked her desire to be in showbiz, taking her to vaudeville shows at a young age.
2.5 hours make people cry and laugh, and it was pure magic, and I think that really sparked me to be in the business.
As Ball began to pursue work in entertainment, her family life was forever changed when her grandfather got her brother Fred a rifle for his birthday. One day, when the kids were target practicing, Fred's girlfriend Joanna accidentally shot their young neighbor Warner Erickson, who was left paralyzed.
This girlfriend of mine had the rifle, aimed it, and the neighbor jumped up at the same time, and it hit him in the back.
Since Ball's grandfather was supervising, he paid Warner's medical bills and ultimately lost everything in a lawsuit. This extended to the rest of the family, with their house being taken away.
They went on the stand to say that my grandfather had made a target of this kid and let us practice on him. It was the most horrible thing. It ruined our home life. We moved away, and my grandfather was never the same.
Although the trial demonized his grandfather, Fred stated that it was nobody's fault. Number 9. Ball's apprenticeship. During her early Hollywood days, Ball was up for any offer that came her way, viewing every opportunity as a potential learning experience. Ball saw it as a paid education, studying under multiple legends.
I was a part of it. I didn't care what I did. They never had to ask me twice to do anything. I said, I want to know about this. I want to know how to do this.
On the RKO lot, Ball attended Leela E. Rogers' acting school. If her name sounds familiar, that might be because she's the mother of another iconic actress, Ginger Rogers. While Rogers became the bigger movie star, Ball was elated when she learned that she had raised her profile enough to be considered a type.
One day I saw, on a script, Lucille Ball type. That was one of the biggest thrills I could imagine. Imagine that anybody knew who Lucille Ball was.
Ball also honed her comedy skills working with Buster Keaton and passed on what she knew to further greats like Carol Burnett.
What Lucy gave me was a sense I could do anything and try anything and not be afraid of falling on my face, that I could be free.
Number 8. Their first meeting. As we see throughout the documentary, Ball and Arnaz's relationship wasn't as lighthearted as their TV counterparts might suggest. However, their first encounter was like something out of a classic meet-cute.
I had a big black eye and bruises on my face, and in that interim, I met Desi Arnaz.
After appearing in the stage version of Too Many Girls, Arnaz went on to appear in the 1940 film adaptation. Ball was cast as ingenue Connie Casey around the same time she was starring as a burlesque queen in Dance Girl Dance. When Arnaz first saw Ball, she had just come from filming a particularly physical scene. Although Arnaz questioned the casting, Ball transformed for Too Many Girls.
Later on that afternoon, it was the first get-together, and I said to the piano player, oh man, that's a hunk of woman. He says, you met her this morning.
Arnaz was blown away to learn that this was the same woman he'd encountered earlier. It was the beginning of a whirlwind romance.
I said, look, you love me? She said, yes. I love you. I said, I want kids. He said, what else is there? We got married 6 months later.
Number 7. How Arnaz revolutionized television. Although CBS didn't want Arnaz to play Ball's husband due to his Cuban background, the real-life couple demonstrated their natural chemistry on tour.
She did Cuban feet with me, and boom, 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 and knocked my hat off my head. And the audience throughout the country, they love us being together.
Arnaz's casting not only benefited the show, but the television landscape. Before I Love Lucy, shows were broadcast live for the East Coast. The West Coast, meanwhile, got stuck watching an inferior kinescope recording. This essentially involved putting a camera in front of a monitor, recording a program as it played. Arnaz suggested shooting on film using 3 cameras to give both coasts the highest quality.
Then CBS came in and said, well, Lucy works better in front of an audience. And they were right. She does work better in front of an audience. So I said, well, why don't we do it on film in front of an audience?
The Desi technique became standard practice, but who knows how long networks would have relied on kinescopes without Arnaz.
It came about that he was a great producer, which amazed all of us. But most of all, he learned to hire good men for the job and then let them do it.
Number 6. Vivian Vance was hired before Ball approved her. While it's hard to imagine I Love Lucy without Ricky, the show would have felt equally incomplete without Ethel and Fred. Just as CBS had reservations about Arnaz, they were skeptical about actor William Frawley.
They said he hadn't done anything in a long time. He had a drinking problem, and the more they kept knocking him down, the more I thought he was right for the part.
Arnaz was also responsible for casting Vivian Vance as Ethel, immediately knowing she was right for the role. Vance was cast before Ball had a chance to weigh in. However, according to Ball, when they finally did meet, it was love at first sight.
I have approved of you since the day I set eyes on you. And you know, you were hired without my seeing you, remember?
I know. I've often wondered, Miss Ball. Had you seen me first?
The same can't be said about Vance's feelings towards Frawley. Vance resented having an on-screen husband more than 2 decades older than her, leading to friction behind the scenes.
Lucy, is that my date? He's no dream, he's a nightmare.
Number 5. The Red Scare. In 1936, Ball registered as a communist along with her brother and mother.
Grandpa was always for the working man. We did register communist to pacify him.
This made Ball a target during the Red Scare. Although her name was cleared by the authorities, Ball faced another hurdle after the press caught wind of the story.
Later on, somebody found that card, and this one paper ran this huge big red headline, red ink. Lucille Ball is a card-carrying communist.
With the media painting her as a communist, Ball feared that the public might not believe the truth. Arnaz stepped up during this difficult period. In front of a live studio audience, he defended his wife and even got J. Edgar Hoover on the phone to confirm her innocence to everyone. Desi also uttered his iconic line, referencing Lucy's naturally brown locks.
The only thing red about her was her hair. And even that was not legitimate.
Number 4. Their final family vacation. Ball and Arnaz had been growing apart for a while, with the latter's alcoholism becoming especially strenuous.
She was willing to go the extra mile for him, and he still couldn't pull it back. And my mother had her own problems, and they didn't make it any better.
In a last-ditch effort to preserve the life they built together, the two tried rekindling their love with a family vacation to Europe. Their daughter, Lucy Arnaz, described the trip as a, quote, nightmare, overhearing her parents argue. Likewise, Ball remembered the vacation as, quote, miserable, knowing then and there that the marriage was over. Arnaz was also beyond ready to call it quits.
So I didn't want to buy any part of it anymore. I just made up my mind I couldn't live anymore that way.
Upon returning to the States, the couple informed their children that they were getting divorced. Once the split was finalized, though, Ball and Arnaz found it much easier to get along.
These were not people that held resentments. You know, they couldn't be married, but they kept working together.
You see, when we worked, we were happy. We loved our work. We worked very well together.
Both would marry other people, with their second marriages having much longer lifespans. Number 3. The show's original premise. I Love Lucy derived from the radio show My Favorite Husband, which starred Ball and Richard Denning. When Arnaz replaced Denning for the TV series, several tweaks were made to the husband character. Aside from being Cuban, the husband went from a bank executive to a band leader.
My dad came up with this idea of a guy who's been raised in show business, and he wants nothing more than to get away from it and have a normal home life.
This created a fun dynamic, with Ricky being part of the entertainment world and Lucy wanting to break out into showbiz, with often chaotic results. According to Laura LaPlaca, though, The show's original premise would have been very different and closer to the couple's real life.
The initial vision was that Lucy and Desi were going to play movie stars, and they changed that right away.
Given how things worked out, it was likely for the best.
We had a hell of a pilot. We brought the rafters down.
Number 2. How Ball learned of her pregnancy. Ball and Arnaz struggled to have children for years. Arnaz's mother even convinced them to have a second Catholic wedding, hoping it would increase their chances of pregnancy. When Ball suspected that she was pregnant and went in for a test, gossip columnist Walter Winchell got word of the lab results before either parent and broadcast the news on his radio show.
I woke up, Desi said, "We're gonna have a baby. It's it. The test is okay." He said, "How do you know? How do you know you're not supposed to know Monday morning?" I said, "Winchell told me." Winchell said so. He says, "How you like that?"
Although Ball sadly miscarried, she would get pregnant again before I Love Lucy recorded its pilot episode. After Ball became pregnant with her second child, Arnaz insisted on working it into the new season, much to the network's disapproval.
You could never use the word.
No, I think I wanted to say, I feel like a pregnant goose. And they said I could say I feel like an expectant swan.
As Ball recouped, old episodes were broadcasted again, giving birth to the rerun as we know it.
Because Desi had ownership of those films, they began to run repeat episodes when the show was on hiatus and established the rerun model that really transformed the entire television industry.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Ball briefly changed her name. During her modeling days, she started going by Diane Belmont.
I also was saying that I was from Montana, so I acquired a nickname. Two Gun.
No retakes rule. With 3 cameras constantly running, it was too expensive to do multiple takes.
400 people in the bleachers, and they do a warm-up, and the band starts up, and you do that show. And you do that show once.
Fanny Brice's impact. When Brice left her show, producer Jess Oppenheimer was free to work with Ball.
Suddenly he was unemployed, just had a baby, just bought a house. He was very open to a new job, even though his friends said, "Don't go work for Lucille Ball. She's very difficult to work with."
Why they switched to monthly shows during the later years. They couldn't handle weekly shows anymore, but they didn't want to quit entirely.
There's a lot of stories about how difficult it was for them on the set, and I think it's very visible on the screen.
Why do I have to act like such a goof always?
Arnaz and his mother didn't feel at home. Although they lost everything in Cuba, they couldn't help but miss their home country.
And I think that was Desi's struggle in his life. Because he never really felt at home. And he kept looking for it. Everywhere.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Their final conversation. The documentary explores how Lucille and Desi's relationship differed from Lucy and Ricky's. Behind the scenes and in front of the camera, though, I Love Lucy was never just a title. Even after they divorced and moved on, Ball and Arnaz still cared deeply about each other. This is apparent from their final conversation.
And I said, I think you should talk to him. Don't know if he's going to be awake much longer. So if you want to say anything at all, now's a good time.
Lucy Arnaz recounted calling her mother as her father's health deteriorated. Knowing that this would likely be their final conversation, the pair made it count.
She said, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you." And he said, "I love you too, honey."
Desi passed away shortly after. With exception to his daughter and a nurse, Ball was the last person that Arnaz talked to. Coincidentally, the date of their last exchange would also be significant.
12:05 in the morning, he died in my arms. And I thought, wow, he got a chance to speak to her. The last person he spoke to other than me and a nurse was my mom. That's great. And then I realized that 12:05 a.m. on December 2nd, it's 24 hours he'd been in a coma. The day they spoke was November 30th, their anniversary.
agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from MsMojo. And be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.